Welcome, everybody. It's Mark Carbon with Baseball Biz, and with me is none other than my co-host, Mr. Brandon No Way. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good, Mark. How about you?
I am just loving it. I'm loving it, man. I feel like my entire life is being judged. So it's driving me crazy. I can't even get. You know what I need is I need an umpire in my life to help me get through some of this. However, I haven't been pleased with some of the things I've been seeing out there. How about you?
It's left a lot to be desired. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, there's been some questionable calls, and we'll talk about a little bit about that in today's show. We'll take a look at what's going on with some pitching, some things we expected and didn't expect here on Baseball Biz. Brandon will also give you the rundown like he does every week. We'll talk about the nature of an umpire, what it means, and talking about being judged. We'll have Joe West share a bit of a story with us as well. Actually, Joe won't be here, but we'll share a story with you about Joe in a little bit too. But Brandon, any other insights before we walk down this journey with umpires and questionable calls?
I actually have a fun trivia thing for you if you want to do that very quick.
Yeah, let's do that.
Do you know who the MLB logo is a silhouette of?
You're talking about the little guy at the bat up there, the silhouette? Huh.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Babe Ruth.
I did not know it was a real person, but apparently it's Harmon Killebrew.
Harmon Killebrew.
I did not know that. I just thought it was made up.
I thought as well. I was just kidding about Babe Ruth because I figured the stature would look a little different. Harmon Killebrew. For today, we are going to take a look at some questionable calls. One of the ones starting out with this new season, I think everybody had to take a double look at, was with Mr. Mike Conforto with the Mets. That game ended with something the Marlins couldn't even begin to guess. Here, let's play a bit from some of the announcers, what they had to say at this game-ending walk-off hit by pitch.
And he stuck his elbow right into that pitch. Should be strike three. And the umpires are conferring, and let's see. But it's a judgment call by the umpire as to when they fan to say the play stands, game's over, the Mets win it. Wow.
You've heard what they had to say here. Now, to kind of give you a little bit more insight what that's about, Marlins reliever Anthony Bass was up there. He's really good about working the edges of the strike zone. He's getting right at the corner. It's going to be a strike. There's no doubt. He's getting there. It's just slightly inside, but still in the strike zone. And just as the umpire was getting ready to call it a strike, Michael Conforto leans in just a little bit with his elbow and takes the hit. And I mean, Brandon, it wasn't even a hit, was it? I mean, it looked like a brushback.
When I first saw it, I didn't even think that it hit him, to be honest. I thought it missed him completely. And then you see the umpire raise his hand to call a strike, and then he ends up going, oh, nope, that's a hit by pitch. You can go take your base. And it was so bad that even the team that benefited from it, their announcers knew it was a horrible call. That's how bad it was.
I've heard from a few Mets fans, and you'll even find this on some of the YouTubers, but they'll say, we'll take the win, but it was ugly and it wasn't real. I think Michael Conforto was, no, I didn't. Well, maybe, I think he was a bit evasive on whether he intentionally got hit or not. But it was a solid strike. The ball went directly into the catcher's mitt, and I didn't see it. But it wasn't just a matter of him being hit by a pitch and getting a base. It was the end of the frickin' game. Because from that call, there were men on base, and with Conforto walking at first, we had other guys that are going to be walking in, and that ended the game. If I was a Marlins fan, I would be irate. I would be furious. I would protest that game, but it does go to the whole idea of what we expect of the home plate umpires. Brandon, I was surprised long ago as a young kid, and that was a long time ago. And, yeah, and to find out that in Major League Baseball, they actually announced that the names of the umpires. I always thought they'd be like blind justice. They don't really have a name. They just stand there. Maybe blind justice was the wrong parallel.
Well, they're blind sometimes. There's that.
I don't want to say too much because we don't want to get litigious here. We'll talk a little bit more about that in Joe West later. Home plate umpire Ron Culpa rose out of his crouch to begin signaling a third strike. Conforto turned and pointed to his elbow, indicating that pitch had hit him. Well, Culpa responded by animated tapping his own elbow, indicating that it was indeed a hit by pitch. Conforto jogged to first base, where Dominic Smith dumped a bottle of water on his head as the Mets mobbed him and Marlins manager Don Mattingly emerged from the visiting dugout. I love the home umpire's name, too. Ron Culpa. Do you think he's mea culpa? No. Okay, bad Latin joke. Yeah, but it's too late. The Mets won their opener. There you go. 3-2. And this is one of those, I think, that will live in history.
It's going to be one of those we look back over like 10 years from now. It's like, how did you make that call? It was kind of like when Jim Joyce did I believe it was Armando Galarraga, the Tigers, where he called the guy safe, but he was out by a mile. And it cost him I think it was a perfect game. Might be like that one day. Not to that extent, but it'll be remembered like that.
It will be recalled when other future events occur as far as questionable calls. Evidently, I was looking also at an article from Mr. Ken Rosenthal. And in it, I think he's saying, umpire Ron Culpa admitted blowing a call Thursday when he ruled Michael Conforto as hit by a pitch to give the Mets a 3-2 walk-off over the Marlins, even though the pitch was in the strike zone and should have resulted in a called strike three. Replay was used, and we're going to talk about that too, but only to determine whether the pitch hit Conforto. The questions of whether the pitch was a strike and whether Conforto attempted to get out of the way, judgment calls, were not reviewable. We ought to do a whole show just on judgment calls. Okay. All right, let's put Conforto and that game to rest. So, that's one little episode. Not surprisingly here in the first week and a half of the new season. Wasn't really anything else going on like that, was there, Brandon?
There was a couple things, and we had an umpire call a foul ball that was clearly foul, called it a home run. There was that. Remember we talked about that earlier this week.
Yeah, that was just crazy nuts. And then what the thing with d'Arnaud?
Oh, the Braves Phillies one. That one was horrible. I mean, even I could tell that was a bad call.
Now, to kind of give folks what we're talking about here, this is Mr. Travis d'Arnaud, catcher, for the Braves, and they're playing the Phillies. We got a base runner. He's coming into home. Alex Bohn. There he is with the Phillies. He's going to make it. He's going to get in. And the ball's thrown in. Catcher d'Arnaud gets the ball. And he tags. He tags Alex Bohn, but that's not really it. I mean, it wasn't that he even got tagged. It was that Bohn never even touched the plate. Insanity.
And it wasn't like it was even close either. There were replays where you could definitely see his foot skipped over. Like it hit short, jumped over, and landed behind it. There were replays that showed it perfectly. And somehow it wasn't conclusive enough to overturn it. Even though everybody and their mother saw it.
I don't know. I think sometimes we need to have some of those game shows where they, they can say, I'd like to reach out and call someone for an answer. Can the audience give me an answer? I think
you can phone a friend.
Yeah, phone a friend. And in a sense, the umpires do that when they send it up to the replay operations center. But yeah, oh gosh, that was terrible, man. And what are they going to do? MLB, they said in a statement later that after review of all relevant angles, the replay official could not definitely determine that the Phillies' Alex Bohn failed to touch home plate before Braves catcher Travis d'Arnaud tagged him in the ninth inning, and the run proved the difference, and the Phillies hit the Phillies' 7-6 victory. Now, okay, I want to take this part because if you're going to say the replay official could not definitely determine that the Phillies' Alex Bohn failed to touch home plate before Braves catcher Travis d'Arnaud tagged him. Before, okay. He failed to touch home plate before. He didn't touch it. It wouldn't matter if he did it before or after he was tagged.
Yeah, you could see that he was tagged, and you could see that he skipped over the plate when he slid. I mean, that was definitive enough for me. I only needed 2 replays to see it. I mean, boom, boom, 30 seconds, I got the call to room. He's out.
What about that home run that was called earlier this week? That was crazy. I don't have the details here in front of me, but what was it? Let's see.
It was the A's and Dodgers, and Kershaw was pitching, and he gave up a foul ball that they ruled a home run. And I don't even think the A's player really knew that it was a homer. He saw them twirling his finger, and he just kept going. And Kershaw didn't know until the guy was like rounding third, and he was trying to figure out what was going on. And they had the challenge to show that it was foul, and watching the replay, you could tell it was foul just by the angle of where it landed.
That's inspiring. Umpires go through a lot, and you can't expect 100% from these people. Quick note. I know last year, because of COVID, there was like a training camp in Vero Beach for umpires, and they did not have the training camp open because it's that training camp's from everybody, high school, minors, and people who want to get into the majors.
Maybe that's why all the bad calls are going on. They didn't have their training camp.
That's it. I mean, I know that they're evaluated throughout the year, but I think they're evaluated by their umpires, so
they evaluate themselves.
That's right. I love it when a government agency says, well, yes, sir, may be reason for investigation, but we'll take a look at it ourselves. Nobody else. Y'all stand back now. We'll take a good look at it. And that says the same thing to me about we're going to have umpires investigate umpires.
It's like when you're in school and you get to grade your own work, and sometimes you'll erase answers and circle the right one to give yourself the right one. That's kind of what it seems like.
Oh, brother. Now look into some of the controversy here. And there's always going to be calls that are questionable. It was interesting to see Ken Rosenthal came up, with an analysis that I found very helpful. And it was 5 possible ways to improve MLB's instant replay system. Because we were talking about earlier, I mean, you've got 4 umpires on the field. You've got 1 behind home plate and then 1 by each of the bases. And now that's during the regular season. So when there is questions, they get together, but after that it goes to replay system. Rosenthal wanted to take a look at how that could help improve things. So he hit 5 elements. We'll just tell you what they are now, and we'll go a little bit in each one of them. First one was ignore the call on the field. We'll tell you what that means. Second was replace the umpires at the command center with independent experts. The third, make more calls reviewable. The fourth, make the replay official a 5th member of the umpiring crew. And the last one was offer full transparency. Let's hit that first one, Brandon. Ignore the call on the field. I think we'd all like to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a proposal, but it's kind of out there. I mean, I don't know if that will really fix anything because, I think the call that they made in the Braves game, that was just incompetence, to be honest. The Braves, or not the Braves one, the Dodgers and the A's one, I understand that was a mistake. It happens, or not everybody's perfect. And especially if you're there live, that's actually a long way to see a ball. So, that's just a mistake everybody makes. But the Braves one, I think that's just incompetence.
Well, when I saw that headline for that number 1, ignore the call on the field, I thought, well, as a fan, I often do. It's that's a bunch of horse hockey. Come on. But when Rosenthal was talking about ignoring the call on the field, he was talking as far as the replays. Basically, they were talking about if there was a questionable call and they sent it up to the replay center, they would not let the replay center know what the call actually was on that play. So they're making a judgment without being able to give favor to the umpire's decision. Because right now, the way it stands, once an umpire makes a decision, it takes a lot to overturn it. Basically, it has to be clear and obvious that call was wrong. If it's questionable at all, it goes and stays with the original call. So any disputed call with the umpire that went up to the replay center, if you instituted this rule, ignore the call on the field, I don't know. What do you think, Brandon?
I think it's fine the way it is. I mean, every other sport that has replay says it has to be clear and concise or definitive, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. It's only baseball that seems to have a problem with something that's really simple, to be honest.
Yeah, not baseball. No.
Leave it to baseball to do something so simple but make it so complicated.
Well, that's what we're all about. I mean, between all the analytics, I wonder if there's umpire analytics out there. Well, we actually have some numbers. We'll go over a little bit of those in a moment. But let's see. Oh, the second one Rosenthal had, replace the umpires at the command center with independent experts. Now, the reasoning behind that is that at the replay command center, the people who observe and make decisions, they're other umpires. They're basically in rotation. So while you may be umpiring on the field this week, you could be at the replay command center another week. So the gist of that would be, if you're replacing them with independent experts, you're having somebody who doesn't have a vested interest, who can look at this with a blind eye, so to speak, or without any kind of attachment to the people who are out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good one because, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, they have professional relationships and it's like they don't show favoritism like, hey, that's my boy, I'm going to help him out. He didn't get that call wrong. Or, hey, I don't like this guy, I'm going to make sure that the call's wrong. I don't think that happens. At least I hope that doesn't happen, but I think that would definitely eliminate it.
I'd have to agree with you. I doubt that there's favoritism. I think what the real challenge is that you all have the same mindset, and whether you're thinking of it consciously or subconsciously, I don't think there's favoritism. I just think that if you all march in the same single file, there's not going to be much deviation. Maybe there shouldn't be. I don't know. We'll see. So replace the umpires in the command center with independent experts. I'd have to give that a hard no.
Yeah, it's a no from me, dog, as Randy Jackson would say.
All right. Rosenthal's third suggestion, make more calls reviewable.
Nope.
Nope. No. Oh, no hesitation there, Brandon?
No, they have a hard enough time with what they have now. You can't give them more.
Well, what do you get? Does each team get 2 reviewable calls that they can play out in the game?
Yeah.
But so if you use those, I think they give you another one if you go into extra innings or overtime, as some of my friends say. My friends who are partially involved in the game. The whole idea, of more calls. Good Lord! Right now, it takes almost a minute and a half to 2 minutes, sometimes more than that, for a call to be reviewed. And if you don't like how long a baseball game is now, think of how much more you would love it if you had, 3 more reviewable plays on each side of the game.
Ugh. No.
Hard no.
Yeah, like I said earlier, or a minute ago, it was like, no, it's a pass.
Yeah, I love it. You didn't hesitate. Congrats on that one. Now, here's an interesting one. Make the replay official, this is his fourth suggestion, Ken Rosenthal, make the replay official a 5th member of the umpiring crew. Guess what? I guess maybe that if you're one of those other 4 umpires out in the field we were talking about a moment ago, do you put the 5th umpire in their ear? Or is he just, when they all gather to discuss a play, at the field, instead of sending something up to the replay center, you got the 5th guy say, hey, I'm looking at here on the film, and guys, he was safe. Or he's talking in here, and does he give instructions too? I mean, I don't think umpires give instructions to other umpires during the game. What do you think that'd be like, though, having the replay official as a 5th member of the umpiring crew?
I think it would be a good move because both the NHL and NFL, they have it to where video officials can come in. Like they have it where the booth can buzz down to the head official. We see it all the time where they'll randomly blow the play dead before they snap the ball and say that we're going to the booth to review it. So the NFL has that, and the NHL has it where in Toronto they have like this big, the war room as they call it, but it's basically a man cave with a bunch of TVs where they watch the games all night. And what they do sometimes is if say if the puck crosses the line and the officials in the arena don't see it and the play keeps going, they'll actually buzz the horn and they'll randomly stop the play and say, hey, we saw that looked like it went in, and they'll show them the replay to make sure so that, time doesn't drag on. So the NHL has that, and I think if the MLB were to have that, it would be good. Like, it would speed up replay. We don't have to sit there and have the manager stare in the dugout with their hand out saying, wait a minute. We don't have to have that. We can just have the booth review, as they call it. Speed up the game, sort of.
I don't know. I kind of like the drama of the manager sitting in the booth, But seriously, okay. And you were talking about the other one with a booth on the field. That was football, though, right? That was NFL.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fifth official. They're at the stadium, but they're just like up in a booth watching replays.
So you don't think proximity has anything to do with it? You would opt it whether they're in a command center somewhere reviewing it or being in a booth somewhere near on the field. Same difference?
Yeah, I think either one would be fine.
Yeah. I don't like it.
So it's kind of like me with the make more calls reviewable.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know, man. To me, it's one more voice that's there. You got 4 of them out there. And I don't, we'll see. I mean, and if you did have a 5th member who is judging, is he going to, I guess he'd still be at the replay center. Anyway. Well, let's move on to number 5. Offer full transparency. I guess what he's looking for here is seeing that after the game, or maybe even during the game, explaining what they saw. Because a lot of times it's been where the call's made, and unless there's some sort of formal protest, nothing is really explained, to anyone about the call. I thought it was interesting that Culpa, saw fit to come out and say, hey, I was wrong. What can I tell you?
And good for him for admitting his mistake. I mean, that he's like, you know what, I'm an adult. I'm going to own up to my mistake. And he did that. And I think, offering full transparency would be great. Because every other sport does it where they go out there and they explain, this call stands because of this, or this call is confirmed or overturned because of this. So why can't baseball do it? You just see them go safe or out, and you're just left to assume. Right. And you know what happens when you assume, right?
Yeah, you make a prez out of you and me. Oh, that's pretty easy. Okay, I'm sorry.
Close enough.
Yeah, I had a boss tell me that when I was a youngster. She called me in the office and said, well, I assumed this, that, and the other. And she says, well, you know what assume that means. So, yeah, it means I was kind of taking something for granted, which I saw. No, that's what I mean. Assume means you make app out of you and me. Okay, thank you. I'm back in grade school. No. Oh, but here's one. I mean, you were talking earlier about the umpires calling a foul ball as a home run for the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw, them playing the Oakland A's. Did they have to use that as one of their challenges?
I don't remember seeing if it was a challenge. I thought that they, discussed it and then went to review, which we've seen them do. I think that's what it was, but I could be wrong.
I would hate to think that I would have to use one of my 2 challenges to say, it's a freaking foul ball. I know your eyes lost it and you thought it went out of the park, but it was a foul ball. No, it's here. Let's see. Take a look at a replay breakdown by season, and this was part of what Ken Rosenthal had put in there as well in The Athletic. By the way, I love what the guy writes. He's fantastic. So in 2014, there was a total of 1,286 reviews. Of those, only about 25% were confirmed. Then another about 28% were stood. Then 47% were overturned. Wow, 47% overturned. And if we look and say, 2019, the last full season, there were 1,378 reviews. Pardon me. In 2019, there were 1,378 reviews. 21% were confirmed. about 34% stood as they were, and 44% were overturned. So you're looking mid to high 40s as far as the calls that were overturned each year. And they actually put in their list, too, as far as the average amount of time it took for the replay and the decision. Again, we're looking somewhere about a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Yeah. Most recently, it seemed like they're cutting the time. 2020 was down to a minute and 24 seconds. And we do have analytics.
Well, I mean, at least they're speeding it up a little bit. But, I mean, didn't the Mets-Marlins one? I didn't see it live, but didn't they say it took like 10 minutes to rule on that?
Yeah. So the ones that are really ugly take the longer, it seems like.
That's going to kill the average.
I can't wait to see what 2021 looks like. But maybe there's a running total we can see. I'm getting deep in the weeds here, but you got to pull me out. Okay. Now, if we look at the umpires, they do get trained, and from what I've heard, few of them retire each year. I mean, it's a good gig if you like it. You're not going to be standing squatty in the heat with a mask on your face and possibly get hit several times in a game unless you love that job. So these guys are the least paid people on the field. I mean, you're looking at the guys that are out there. Minimum wage for a MLB player is somewhere around $550,000 to $600,000. You know, we're not even talking about the big boys who are making tens of millions of dollars out there. Umpires, their salaries, like I said, range from $110,000 to $432,000, and they get a bonus if they go into the postseason. But that's not a lot of money. But it's more than a lot of us make. It can be quite kind of sweet. Maybe these guys were teachers in a past life, or maybe they just like telling other people what to do. Maybe do you have to be a control freak to be an umpire? I don't know.
Maybe, because some of them are very control freakish, you know? Like any little thing that they don't like, they'll throw a hissy fit over it, and they'll throw you out.
Joe West, you know, he's kind of probably one of the most recognized umpires out there. He called for a replay. He called for a replay in a lawsuit, drew a lawsuit against, was it Paul Lo Duca?
Yeah, Paul Lo Duca was sued by Country Joe West for $500,000 in a defamation suit. And he said that Lo Duca said during an April podcast interview on the Action Network that he had been ejected 15 times during his major league career, and 8 or 9 had been by West. And he also said that during the podcast, when he was catching Billy Wagner during a Mets game against the Phillies in 06 or 07, that West called 3 straight batters out on strikes. And he added that Lo Duca claimed Wagner told him the reason he got the calls was the pitcher had allowed West to drive his 1957 Chevy. And West countered, saying that he told Lo Duca was ejected 8 times in his career and only once by West. And he denied any favoritism and said that Wagner did not pitch in the only Mets-Phillies game that West worked behind the plate during the 06 and 07 campaigns. And those come courtesy of the Associated Press and ESPN.
You may disagree with an umpire's call. You know, you may think they're crazy. You may say, well, their understanding of the strike zone is questionable. But I believe most of them are honest. I mean, there's judgment calls they make. You can't question them on strikes and balls, but it sounds like Lo Duca here was just shooting off his mouth. Sort of like me, but the difference was he made a character assassination by implying that Joe was motivated by a bribe, if you will. And I got to say, most of the times that I have seen an issue with an umpire, I see that whatever they're doing, they tend to be doing it for both teams. They either see a wider strike zone or a tighter strike zone. And sometimes you'll see, well, it looks like they tightened it up a little later in the game, whatever. But I believe if any of these guys were really on the take, it would come out quick. There is just too much scrutiny on everybody these days that things like this with Joe West, I am not surprised at all that he won his lawsuit and $500,000. There's a whole year worth of work.
As much as I don't like Joe West, I don't think you should attack the man's character. I mean, you could say that I think he's a horrible umpire, but I don't go after the man's character. That's kind of a low blow. And about a month and a half ago, we saw it with the NHL where they had something where an official was caught on tape when they were going to commercial saying, I wanted to give Nashville a penalty early, and then it cut off. And a lot of people were wondering, hey, is this guy showing favoritism? Sort of like what, the NBA official did a long time ago in the Western Conference Finals. I can't remember his name, but he had like money on the game. And he was purposely giving calls to, I think it was the Lakers against the Kings. And so the NHL, hoping to avoid any issue like that, they fired the guy not even 24 hours later.
As well they should. I mean, we're not looking for shoeless Joe Jacksons in any sport, and certainly not as somebody who's officiating. So, Joe West, we're happy for you. Glad you're still out there and keeping the game interesting for us. So, I like
Hopefully
that.
he can put that money towards his next album.
I still haven't got the chance to sit down and listen to his music yet.
I've heard one. I believe it's called Out at Home. It's something.
Okay. Well, let's take one last look at the umpires and a decision. It's not completely made by the umpires, and that's when the rain starts. There was a game the other day, in Mets and Marlins.
Hey, the Marlins.
And our friends. And Marcus Stroman, he was unhappy. I mean, it had been raining and raining and raining. If they'd been in Marlins Stadium, that wouldn't have been a problem. Or was it Lone Depot Park?
Whatever they call it now.
Yeah. And it was saddening. I mean, you saw there was like puddles on the field. I saw Corey Dickerson wiping, the splashes of water off of his helmet when he went up to bat. It's like, what's going on? So this one isn't so much a toss at the umpires, but at whoever's making the decision. Sometimes it's the ground crew, and I think in other instances it might be the umpire. But the thing of it is, come on, people. We want a safe game for our players out there. And a pitcher like Marcus Stroman's out there, and he's not even really going to play. It's going to be 5 more days before he can take the mound after some of this insanity when the game should have been called in the first place. Nope, but they weren't going to do it. What else are we? Some other activities? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a mix between the grounds crew and umpires, even though I think, the umpires have the last say, like what goes. And looking at the videos and the pictures, that was ridiculous. I mean, there were puddles out there. It was pouring down rain because, the whole East Coast was getting storms over the weekend.
Yeah.
And you saw games getting postponed left and right because of it. And for some reason, this wasn't one of them. I've played in the rain before. It's fun. But when it's pouring down rain and you have puddles out there and the infield's all muddy, it becomes like a safety issue. Like you could hurt yourself even easier. And also, the ball is harder to feel because the ball's slick and you can't throw it. So who knows how much it's going to affect the game.
All too true. So the safety issues there, and when it's visibly such a problem, it's crazy. I mean, even WrestleMania had to go ahead and postpone for a couple hours this past weekend. Not to mention, let's see, what was it? Oh, and down in Dunedin where the Blue Jays are playing here in Florida. Weather was bad, and they had to postpone that game for quite a bit. Well, sometimes you need to postpone it, and sometimes you just need to say, well, the field is daggone sloppy. I wouldn't let a horse race on that field. So players shouldn't be out there either. Any other exciting pitchers going on? Anything else going on with? Because we were talking about Padres. They had a little bit of excitement, didn't they, Brandon?
Yes. Thank you for the excellent transition into this week's rundown.
Ba-da-bum. And now here's Brandon's rundown. Okay, that's my Don Pardo.
Well, we'll start with the Padres, where Joe Musgrove, he pitched the first no-hitter in Padres history, and that was only his second start as a Padre. He was acquired in a trade in the offseason, and he went to high school only 13 miles away from Petco Park. So a hometown kid gets the first no-hitter in team history.
Wow, so and that means a complete game, eh?
Yeah. And I think another excellent transition, thank you. And pitchers seem to be going even deeper this year, ever since we discussed a couple weeks ago that they've been having shorter starts more often. Johnny Cueto, about a week ago, on the 9th, against Colorado, he went 8 2/3, only giving up a run and 7 strikeouts. Earlier this weekend, we saw a softball pitcher for North Texas. She threw a perfect game, and she had 21 strikeouts. So every batter she faced, she struck out. So shout out to her.
Oh, man, I'd love to see that.
That would have been so cool. And a little bit of tooting our own horn with the Rays. Glasnow, he went 7 2/3 with 14 strikeouts. That's always a miracle when the Rays pitchers go more than 5.
Oh, yeah.
So he had 14 strikeouts, retired his first 11 batters with 7 strikeouts, and he extended his win streak to 6 games and marked the longest scoreless start since Ryan Yarbrough went 8 2/3 against Seattle in 2019.
That is huge. And I know when you go to a Rays game, they got that board out there, the canes, and every time there's a strike, there's a big K that lights up across that board. And they ran out of Ks, I guess, when they got to Tyler the other night.
Yeah.
Must have blown up the board.
I remember everybody would get so excited when you get close because it used to be you get a free pizza. And now it went down to a hoagie, and now it's what, like a taco or something now?
Yeah, taco and beans.
They kind of lost its excitement, but it's still cool to see the 10 strikeouts.
I wonder if we'll see Cash give him a chance, or any of them a chance for a complete game in 2021.
Hopefully he does, later in the year. This early I can understand. I mean, he had like 100 pitches. I mean, I'd love to have seen him finish the inning, but, it's early. It's a long season. People booed Cash when he was walking out there. I mean, it's early. If this were later in the year, like September, October, or maybe even August, I would understand, maybe be like, hey, let the guy go. It's later in the year. Let's have some fun with it.
Well, congratulations to Tyler and the Rays. That's a great achievement.
Sticking with the pitching, Tigers' top pick, Casey Mize, he got his first big league win against Houston in his 9th start, where he went 7 innings with 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and the shutout. And staying in Houston, A.J. Hinch. It was his return to Houston since managing them in Game 7 of the 2019 World Series, where he was given a standing ovation in his return. And former players came over to Hinch for hugs and laughs. And even though they got him fired, so I guess the hugs were to take the knife out of his back.
Yeah. That's the only place anybody from the Astros is going to get a standing ovation. But the goodwill, I can't imagine whether or not it was reciprocated with Hinch to the players. But, I mean, that man should, I'm not going to say he should have been fired or not fired, but if he was fired, somebody else should have certainly taken some of the heat as well. I'm talking about the players.
Yeah, the players were pretty much gotten away scot-free. They didn't do anything wrong, and we're all overreacting to it, and we should just let things go. All right, going over to the NL, you have the Red Hot Reds, who many people didn't think would be that great this year, but they've been pretty good so far, even though it's early. They're 7-4, and first in the NL Central. Good for them, even though they lost Trevor Bauer, which was their biggest name, and they really seem to get off to a hot start. I don't know how long it can last, but it'll definitely be something to watch if they can keep it going, What can they do in this division? Because so far, it's anybody's game.
Well, I'm certainly going to be watching them closely. I know that after the incarnation of all things that are baseball moved on to the Dodgers, I was really wondering how things were going to be going with the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, this isn't necessarily MLB related, but it is baseball related, as our good friend Alex Rodriguez is a part of a group that is buying the Timberwolves. And their first overall pick of last year's draft, Anthony Edwards, he was asked if he's a fan of A-Rod's, and in response he said, "A fan? Who is he?" And a reporter said, "He's Alex Rodriguez, the baseball player?" And Edwards responded, "Yeah, honestly, I don't know who that is. I know he's going to be the owner, but I don't know nothing about baseball." So...
Oh.
Big fan of A-Rod's. Any chance we get to make fun of him or Yankee in a way, we're going to take it.
Well, you remember, it was him and J-Lo. I thought they were going to be the new owners of the Mets about a year ago.
Yeah, how would that have been since him and J-Lo are no longer together? How would that have gone down?
Would they have had to sell it all to Cohen? Maybe he would have got it at a better price.
Maybe. And lastly, MLB. Busting Bauer's balls. And thank you to DodgersNation.com for that headline. I just had to steal it from them, so shout out to them. Bauer had some of his balls sent to MLB for inspection after a sticky, visible substance was seen on them. And if you've been living under a rock, MLB banned substances to improve spin rate in the offseason. That was the big topic around a guy named Bubba Harkins. And according to the Dodgers manager Dave Roberts, the umpires are collecting balls from all pitchers and those that are put in play for inspection/testing, and says that he wants to guard against his players being singled out, but he thinks Bauer is. I don't know how you can really single somebody out when it's everybody's balls are getting inspected.
Well, it makes for a nice story though, because let's face it, when it comes to Mr. Bauer, he is quite outspoken and entertaining, and not a friend of Manfred. Not to say that Manfred would go after him directly, but when there's going to be any criticism, especially as much as Bauer has made a big deal about how virtually everyone is using some sort of sticky stuff, according to him, not surprisingly that he's going to be scrutinized closely.
Yeah, and in case you don't know, Bauer previously said that those substances gave a bigger advantage than steroids. He also said that there's no way that the spin rate can jump 300 or more RPMs on a fastball without using an illegal substance. But how much did his spin rate jump last year on his fastball? 300 or more RPMs.
Okay.
And we also have a response from Bauer. He put on Twitter, LOL, always funny reading desperate and misleading clickbait headlines from national gossip bloggers. To translate fake journalist speak for y'all, it's unclear whether equals I can't be bothered to look into this because it doesn't fit my narrative. Wonder where the articles about balls from every other pitcher being taken out of play in literally every other game this season are. Also, LOL to MLB, who already has sources talking to gossip bloggers about a supposedly confidential process a week into the season. Thumbs up, y'all keep killing it.
But that's Bauer being Bauer, I tell you what, and is always sharing his love with the MLB.
Yeah, I mean, if Dave Roberts is talking about, the media singling him out, and then I can understand, I hate that. But if he's talking about the process, then I think he kind of contradicts himself. But I do think he's talking about the media singling him out. I don't think we're considered media, but if you see Trevor Bauer's baseballs taken away for inspection for substance, most people probably don't really know that there's the ban on the substance, unless you're like a big fan. But if you're somebody who every once in a while drops in, but knows who Trevor Bauer is and know that he hates cheating, that's going to grab eyeballs and headlines like that. They're going to attract more people. So that's why they're doing it. That's why TMZ is so popular.
Oh yeah. Well, you hit it when Bauer said clickbait, because that's what it is. For a lot of folks, it's just a way to draw you in. Hey, what can we put in clickbait for this episode? I don't know how to think about it.
We can talk about Trevor Bauer.
Oh, well, that would be a good idea. Oh gosh, no. My sympathies go out to him, and it's so easy to go ahead and assert something. We were talking about how somebody did that with, Joe West, and guess what? They got hit for it. They got hit with it for $500,000 as well. They should. And when it comes to personalities and it comes to, people's reputation, others need to be careful about that. So it's so easy. I won't say necessarily to destroy a person's life, but to alter it with lies. And gee, I'm getting up on this soapbox again, but it makes a difference.
Yeah, and before we get to that, this story came out roughly a week ago, and I haven't seen anything out on it since, so I guess maybe everything is okay, but I don't know how long the process really takes, so I'm assuming it doesn't take over a week to do, but remember what happens when you assume.
Well, all the investigation on Bauer, all the looking back at Bubba Harkins, looking at the purity of the game, what's involved, what's not. Even it was Zach Hanfel I saw coming out of Game of the Day. He caught one of them and said, this one's got some stuff on it. It's like, geez. Well, one, you got to remember that they're allowed to have some mud on it. There's actually, we talked about before, there's a sanctioned product that the guys who work in the clubhouse, they go ahead and mud up the balls. But that's not what was being accused of with the sticky stuff. But then there's some other things going on with the ball. I mean, we had balls that say, well, they've made them so that you can have more homers. That was there for a while. Now they're saying that they've been deadening the ball. And one of the things is, are we going to see less home runs this year because of that? I don't know. But some of the people are asserting not only have the balls been deadened, but they're also getting more bounce. And I'm curious to see how that's going to impact the small game.
Yeah, we've said we kind of want more, small ball. And from what we've seen a little bit more of it this year, which I like because I'm honestly a fan of the small ball.
Well, there you go, man. From busting Bauer's balls, as you were stating earlier, to balls even being made to where they're favorable to home runs and having their own steroids, as Bauer was talking about with the sticky stuff, to being deadened and looking at less of an exit velocity. But it's the purity of the game. And here we are, Brandon, once again, just a few days, a week and a half into the season, and we've got plenty of controversy.
It makes our job easier. I mean, we always joke about it, but it really does.
There's plenty of stuff once the season starts to talk about. And we're not just talking about the scores. We're talking about the whole infrastructure around the game. And I hear Rob Manfred's got a new plan on infrastructure. I'm not sure what it's going to be, so we'll see.
Is it one baseball?
One baseball, that's right. Okay. Brandon, once again, we have covered all the most important parts of baseball this week on Baseball Biz. As we're wrapping all of this up with our great insights once again in another week of baseball, do you have any final words to share with our audience, Brandon?
Thanks for listening, and give us all a follow.
There you go. So we look forward to that, and you can find Brandon at Sports Blitz Pod on Twitter and me at The Baseball Biz on Twitter. And, of course, wherever you are listening to us now. Also, you can find us at podcast.google, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and most any directory out there. So thank you for once again listening to us here on Baseball Biz, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Also, special thanks to XtakeRux for the music Rocking Forward.